What if the most glamorous woman in the world stepped into the shadows, not for fame, but to change a life forgotten by society? What secrets lie behind her quiet visit to a rundown homeless shelter? The city was drowning in the bitter chill of December, its streets bustling with hurried footsteps and shimmering holiday lights. Yet, in the shadows of New York's opulence, a rundown homeless shelter quietly braved the winter night. Unbeknownst to anyone, a sleek black car pulled up discreetly to the alley behind the shelter. From the vehicle stepped a figure wrapped in a long coat, her face obscured by a scarf and a wide-brimmed hat. It was Melania Trump. Since leaving the White House, she had stayed away from the spotlight, preferring the quiet solace of her family life. But tonight was different. Something had drawn her here, a newspaper article about the shelter's struggle to stay open during the harsh winter. She felt a pang in her chest, recalling the modest life she'd lived in Slovenia before the glamour and fame. As she entered, the warmth of the room was a stark contrast to the cold outside. The shelter was modest, with old, mismatched furniture and the faint scent of soup wafting through the air. It was filled with people from all walks of life, single mothers, war veterans, and children clutching threadbare toys. They were survivors of life's harshest storms, and Melania couldn't help but feel a deep connection to their resilience. A woman approached her, her tired eyes lighting up as she recognized the former First Lady. "Mrs. Trump? Is that really you?" she whispered in disbelief. Melania placed a finger to her lips, signaling for silence. "I'm here as a friend," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of sincerity. "Tell me, what do you need the most?" The woman, the shelter's director, led her to a small office. She spoke about the dwindling funds, the rising number of people seeking refuge, and the fear of shutting down before Christmas. Melania listened intently, her mind racing with ideas. Before leaving, she spent time talking to the residents, sharing quiet moments of encouragement and listening to their stories. She left the shelter that night with a promise she intended to keep. The morning after Melania's quiet visit, the shelter awoke to an extraordinary surprise. A truck arrived, filled with supplies, blankets, food, medicine, and toys for the children. The director, Margaret, stood frozen in disbelief as volunteers unloaded the generous donations. Attached to one of the boxes was a small, handwritten note, for those who need it most. A friend. Though the note lacked a signature, Margaret knew in her heart who was behind it. The whispers of Melania Trump's late-night visit spread among the staff, but no one dared to confirm or deny it publicly. The media hadn't caught wind of it, and for once, the world didn't know about an act of kindness from one of its most recognizable faces. Meanwhile, Melania was sitting at her kitchen table, sipping tea and scrolling through her phone. Her husband, Donald Trump, entered the room, noticing her contemplative demeanor. "You've been quiet since last night. What's on your mind?" he asked, his usual commanding tone softened with genuine curiosity. Melania hesitated, then spoke. "I visited a shelter last night. The people there, they reminded me of where I came from, the struggles I faced before all of this." She gestured to the luxurious surroundings of their penthouse. Donald raised an eyebrow. "And? I sent them supplies, but they need more than donations," Melania said firmly. "They need hope. I want to do something bigger, something lasting." Donald leaned back, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "Well, you've always had a way of surprising people. Do what you think is right." Encouraged by his support, Melania began to formulate a plan. She reached out to a trusted network of friends and allies, quietly assembling resources for a project that could transform not just the shelter, but the lives of its residents. Within days, renovations began at the shelter. Walls were repainted, the heating system was repaired, and new beds replaced the old, creaky ones. The residents watched in awe as their once crumbling haven turned into a welcoming space filled with warmth and dignity. One of the residents, a young boy named Jamie, tugged at Melania's coat during one of her visits. "Are you an angel?" he asked, his innocent eyes wide with wonder. Melania knelt to his level, a gentle smile on her face. "No, I'm just someone who cares," she replied, ruffling his hair. But the work didn't stop at physical improvements. Melania arranged for workshops to help residents learn new skills, partnered with local businesses to create job opportunities, and even started a scholarship fund for the shelter's children. The transformation of the shelter didn't go unnoticed for long. Word spread across the community about the mysterious benefactor who had brought hope back to a place once forgotten. Residents began sharing stories of their encounters with Melania, her warmth and sincerity leaving a lasting impression. Margaret, the shelter's director, found herself frequently questioned about the changes. "Who is behind this?" reporters would ask, their cameras and microphones pointed at her. She would smile and respond, "A kind soul who believes in helping others." But the media wasn't satisfied with vague answers. Rumors swirled, and speculation grew. Some suggested a wealthy philanthropist, while others theorized a political move. Melania, however, remained in the background, watching the ripple effect of her actions. One evening, as Melania sat in her study reviewing plans for the shelter's next phase, her assistant entered, visibly uneasy. "Mrs. Trump, I think you should see this," she said, handing Melania a tablet. A headline blared across the screen, "Mystery Donor Transforms Local Shelter. Is it Melania Trump?" Accompanying the article was a grainy photo of Melania exiting the shelter late one night. Melania's heart sank. She had gone to great lengths to keep her involvement private, not out of fear, but because she wanted the focus to remain on the shelter and its residents, not her. Donald walked in at that moment, glancing at the screen. "Well, looks like your secret is out," he said, chuckling. "What are you going to do about it?" Melania set the tablet down, her expression firm. "I'll tell the truth. But only if it helps bring attention to the shelter's mission." The following day, Melania called a press conference at the shelter. Standing before a crowd of reporters, she spoke from the heart. "I didn't do this for recognition. I did it because no one should feel forgotten or hopeless. This shelter represents a second chance, not just for its residents, but for all of us to be better, kinder, and more compassionate." Her words struck a chord, and the media coverage brought an outpouring of support for the shelter. Donations flooded in, and volunteers from across the city offered their time and skills. The newfound attention on the shelter brought an influx of resources and volunteers, but it also brought scrutiny. Critics surfaced, questioning Melania's motives. Was this a ploy to rehabilitate her public image? A strategic move to prepare for her husband's potential political ambitions? Melania tried to brush off the negativity, but the weight of the accusations lingered. Every decision she made for the shelter was dissected by pundits and opinion columns. The shelter's residents, too, began to feel the strain of the public spotlight. One evening, Melania sat with Margaret in the shelter's modest office, going through plans for a new counseling program. The director hesitated before speaking. "Mrs. Trump, I need to ask. Are you sure you want to continue? The pressure is mounting, and I can't imagine how exhausting this must be for you." Melania looked up, her eyes steady. "Margaret, I've faced challenges before, but none have ever mattered as much as this. These people deserve hope, and I won't let anyone take that away from them." Margaret nodded, a sense of admiration in her expression. "Then let's keep moving forward." Determined to prove her sincerity, Melania began organizing events to involve the community in the shelter's mission. She launched an open house, inviting residents, donors, and volunteers to see the impact of their contributions firsthand. On the day of the event, a young woman named Clara, a shelter resident, shared her story. Standing before a crowd, she spoke about how she had lost her job, her home, and nearly her will to live. "But this place saved me. It gave me a chance to rebuild my life. And for that, I'm forever grateful." Her testimony moved the audience, including some of Melania's harshest critics. Clara's words humanized the shelter's purpose, shifting the narrative from speculation to inspiration. As the event concluded, Melania approached Clara, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You were brave today. Thank you for sharing your story." Clara smiled, tears in her eyes. "No, Mrs. Trump. Thank you for giving me a story worth telling." As Melania's work with the homeless shelter gained momentum, so did the attention it attracted. News outlets began covering the initiative, some with praise, others with skepticism. Among the critics was a prominent journalist, Lisa Harper, known for exposing high-profile figures' hidden agendas. Lisa published a scathing article questioning the transparency of the shelter's funding and whether Melania's involvement was genuine. The headline read, "Charity or PR Stunt? The Truth Behind Melania Trump's Shelter Project." Melania refused to let the negativity deter her. She arranged a press conference, inviting journalists to visit the shelter and see the work being done. "This isn't about me," she stated firmly. "It's about the people we're helping. Let their stories speak for themselves." At the conference, Clara, the resident who had previously shared her story, stood by Melania's side. "I'm living proof of what this shelter can do. This isn't a stunt, it's a lifeline," Clara declared, her voice steady and confident. Privately, the criticism began to weigh on Melania. Late one evening, she sat in her penthouse, flipping through photos of the shelter residents she had met. She thought of Margaret, the shelter director, and the countless others who depended on this work. "I can't let them down," she whispered to herself. Her resolve hardened. She began focusing on new initiatives, job training programs, mental health support, and a scholarship fund for children at the shelter. Each step was a message to her detractors: actions speak louder than words. Over time, the results of Melania's efforts became undeniable. Employment rates among the shelter's residents rose, and families began moving into stable housing. Even Lisa Harper, the journalist, returned to write a follow-up piece, this time titled, "The Shelter That Defied the Odds." In the article, Lisa admitted, "While I question Mrs. Trump's motives, the impact of her work is clear. She has brought hope to a community that desperately needed it." As the shelter celebrated its growing success, a shadow began to loom over its achievements. Melania had built a foundation of trust and hope, but not everyone shared her vision. Within her own team, cracks began to form. Margaret, the shelter director, began noticing discrepancies in the shelter's finances. Small sums were unaccounted for, invoices seemed inflated, and donations from prominent benefactors never made it to the books. Margaret hesitated but knew she had to inform Melania. During a quiet evening meeting in Melania's office, Margaret laid the evidence before her. "I didn't want to believe it," Margaret admitted, "but someone is siphoning funds. We're being betrayed from the inside." Melania's heart sank. The betrayal felt personal. This was her mission, her passion. "We need to act quickly," she said, her voice resolute. A discreet investigation was launched. Melania hired a forensic accountant and a private investigator to trace the missing funds. Weeks passed, and the trail pointed to someone shockingly close, Richard Cole, the shelter's financial advisor. Richard had been with the project since the beginning, a trusted ally. The discovery shook Melania to her core. Confronting him was a moment she dreaded, but it was necessary. In a tense meeting, Melania faced Richard. "Why?" she demanded, holding back tears. You didn't just steal money, you stole trust, hope, and faith from people who needed it most. Richard, cornered and exposed, admitted his guilt. It was never supposed to go this far, he said. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. I needed the money for my debts. But Melania had no room for excuses. You betrayed the very people who trusted you. There's no justification for that, she said coldly. Richard was immediately removed from his position, and legal actions were taken. Melania, however, knew the damage went beyond finances. The betrayal risked tarnishing the shelter's reputation. To rebuild trust, she decided on full transparency. In a press conference, she addressed the issue head-on. We discovered a breach in our financial integrity and have taken swift action to correct it. We are committed to ensuring every penny goes to the people who need it most, she assured the public. Melania's honesty won over skeptics and donors alike. The shelter received an outpouring of support from those who admired her courage and accountability. She used the incident as a lesson, implementing stricter controls and creating an independent board to oversee the shelter's operations. With the betrayal behind her, Melania channeled her energy into growing the shelter's mission. The public's response had been overwhelmingly positive, and news outlets began spotlighting her efforts. It wasn't long before a major national network reached out with an offer, a feature segment highlighting her work and its impact on the homeless community. Sitting in the studio under the bright lights, Melania shared her story with millions of viewers. She spoke about the people she'd met, the struggles they faced, and how small acts of kindness could create waves of change. The sincerity in her voice and the passion in her eyes captured hearts across the country. As the segment aired, donations flooded in, and offers of collaboration came from unexpected places. Companies, philanthropists, and even celebrities reached out to support her cause. For the first time, the shelter's future seemed limitless. However, success often attracts envy. Among the many who watched Melania's rise was Victoria Crane, the CEO of a rival charity organization. Victoria had spent years building her brand and wasn't thrilled about being overshadowed. Behind closed doors, Victoria's team began digging into Melania's shelter. They scrutinized every decision, hoping to uncover flaws or scandals that could tarnish her image. Weeks after Melania's interview, an anonymous article surfaced online. It questioned the shelter's ability to handle its newfound funding, accusing it of being poorly managed and suggesting Melania was more focused on fame than philanthropy. The article went viral, with critics and supporters clashing in heated debates. Melania's team worked tirelessly to counter the false claims, but the damage was done. Some donors pulled back, and doubts began to creep in. Rather than retreat, Melania decided to confront the issue directly. She invited a panel of independent auditors and journalists to review the shelter's operations, promising full transparency. The results were clear. The shelter was not only legitimate but also exceptionally efficient, with the majority of its funds directly benefiting those in need. Among those watching the controversy unfold was a tech entrepreneur who had long admired Melania's work, Elon Musk. Inspired by her resilience and commitment, he decided to lend his voice to her cause. In a viral tweet, Elon wrote, "The world needs more people like Melania, turning pain into purpose. I'm proud to support her mission. Let's prove the naysayers wrong." The tweet reignited public support, silencing critics and boosting donations once more. Melania's newfound success only fueled Victoria Crane's bitterness. Determined to reclaim her spotlight, Victoria devised a plan to discredit Melania once and for all. She hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Melania's past, hoping to uncover anything that could tarnish her image. Weeks later, tabloids erupted with shocking headlines: Melania's shelter linked to mismanagement scandal, and funds missing, the truth about Melania's kindness campaign. The accusations were baseless but sensational. Victoria's team had fabricated fake documents and leaked them to the press. The public's reaction was swift and polarizing. While many stood by Melania, others hesitated, unsure of what to believe. Donations slowed, and sponsors began to withdraw. Rather than panic, Melania called for a press conference. Standing before a packed room of journalists, she confidently addressed the allegations. "This shelter was built on trust and compassion," she began, her voice steady. "I have nothing to hide." Melania revealed her detailed financial records and invited investigative journalists to examine them. She also launched a legal investigation into the fabricated claims, vowing to hold those responsible accountable. As the truth emerged, so did an outpouring of public support. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #StandWithMelania and #KindnessWins. Volunteers, donors, and even strangers rallied to protect the shelter's reputation. Among those defending Melania was Elon Musk, who once again stepped in with a bold statement: "When kindness is attacked, we don't stay silent. Let's make this shelter bigger and better. I'm donating $5 million to ensure it thrives." Victoria Crane's smear campaign backfired spectacularly. Investigators traced the fake documents back to her organization, exposing her malicious intent. Public outrage was swift, and Victoria's charity suffered irreversible damage. Despite the turmoil, Melania remained focused on her mission. In a heartfelt speech, she shared, "Kindness isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Challenges will come, but they only make us stronger. Together, we can change the world." The shelter not only survived the scandal but thrived, expanding its reach to new cities and impacting countless lives. The shelter's recovery brought Melania into the spotlight as a beacon of hope and resilience. She had transformed her scandal into a symbol of unshakable resolve. Yet, as the shelter grew, so did the demands on her time. Balancing her public image and personal life became increasingly challenging. One cold evening, as Melania reviewed expansion plans in her modest office, a knock on the door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, she saw a tall man dressed in a simple black coat. His face was partially obscured by a scarf, but there was something familiar about him. "Mrs. Trump, may I have a moment of your time?" the man asked, his voice steady and polite. Melania hesitated before inviting him in, curious yet cautious. The man removed his scarf, revealing none other than Bill Gates, the tech magnate and philanthropist. "I've been following your work," Bill began, seating himself across from her. "What you've built here is extraordinary, and your resilience is inspiring. But I think we can do even more." Melania listened intently as Bill outlined a plan to take the shelter's mission global. He proposed a partnership between his foundation and the shelter, aiming to create a network of homeless support centers worldwide. "It won't be easy," he cautioned. "The resources, the logistics, the scrutiny, it's a monumental task. But I believe you're the right person to lead this." The proposal was ambitious, even overwhelming. Melania wasn't sure if she was ready for such a massive responsibility. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you understand what it means to start small, to fight for every inch of progress," Bill replied. "And because the world needs leaders who lead with kindness." That night, Melania sat alone in the quiet of the shelter's courtyard, her thoughts swirling. The idea of expanding her mission was exhilarating, but it also terrified her. She feared losing the personal connection she cherished with those the shelter served. Elon Musk, who had been a silent supporter since the scandal, reached out after hearing about Gates' proposal. In a video call, he offered words of encouragement. "Change is scary," he said, "but the impact you've made here is proof that you can handle it. Trust yourself." The next morning, Melania called a meeting with her team. "We started with a dream to help those in need," she said. "Now we have the chance to make that dream even bigger. Let's take this leap together." With her team's unanimous support, Melania agreed to partner with Bill Gates. Plans for the global expansion began immediately, marking the start of a new chapter for the shelter. The partnership with Bill Gates brought immense resources and attention to Melania's shelter. What began as a single refuge for the homeless was now becoming a worldwide movement. As new shelters were established in different cities, Melania traveled tirelessly, meeting people from all walks of life and inspiring others to join her mission. During a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new shelter in Los Angeles, Melania faced an unexpected hurdle. A group of protesters gathered outside, accusing her of using the shelter for personal publicity. Their banners read, "Charity or PR stunt," and "Hypocrisy unmasked." The accusations stung, and Melania struggled to maintain her composure. That evening, she met with her closest advisors to address the backlash. Feeling disheartened, Melania turned to Elon Musk, who had become a trusted confidant. "This isn't about them, it's about the lives you're changing," he reminded her. "Focus on the people who believe in your cause." Bill Gates echoed similar sentiments, encouraging her to remain steadfast. True kindness isn't always recognized immediately. Keep going. The results will speak for themselves. While visiting a shelter in New York, Melania met a young girl named Sarah, who had been living on the streets with her mother. Sarah handed Melania a crumpled drawing of a house surrounded by flowers. "This is what I dream of," Sarah said shyly. Melania's heart swelled with emotion. That moment reaffirmed her purpose. The mission wasn't about public opinion, it was about giving hope to people like Sarah. In response to the criticism, Melania decided to be more transparent. She invited the media to follow her team's efforts behind the scenes, showing the challenges and triumphs of their work. The raw and unfiltered approach silenced many detractors and brought more supporters to the cause. One day, Melania received an unexpected call from Michelle Obama. Despite their differences, Michelle offered her support and commended her dedication. "Kindness knows no boundaries," Michelle said. "If there's anything I can do to help, I'm here." The conversation sparked a collaboration. Together, they launched a campaign promoting compassion and unity, bridging divides and inspiring millions. Years later, as Melania stood on the stage of a global summit on homelessness, she reflected on her journey. Her once small shelter had grown into a network that touched lives worldwide. "Kindness is contagious," she said in her closing remarks. "When we choose to act with compassion, we create ripples that can change the world." The audience erupted in applause, and Melania felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her legacy was no longer tied to her past, it was built on the lives she had touched and the hope she had inspired. The story of Melania Trump, the hidden hero, became a beacon of kindness, proving that even in the face of criticism and adversity, compassion could create a brighter future for all. Thank you for watching Elite Unfolded, where we unravel the untold and unfold the extraordinary. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more captivating tales. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you.